recap of the XRP trade, looking for the 1 hour moon, 1 hour trend trade. Now, last night or the video 6, we've seen that we had a section where on the 15-minute, we had found a zone where volume had finally got above the zero line and was starting to, build momentum, get some green candles, get a moon right there, push up, and then the RSI on the 15-minute, ran its course and started to head down at that time, which caused a red moon, negative red volume below the zero line, and a trend which is basically showing weakness since it wasn't able to break into a 1 hour trade. And that brings it down to where now we're getting it down to where we have a 3% pullback, right? And this is always, make sure that you understand that everything that you're tracking or whatever you're doing has two levels, a front and back, up and down. And, you might be thinking long the entire time, but if you don't get your long, be ready to slide into a short and take advantage of the weakness of volume, because this is really the key to trading, is that volume is key. When it doesn't hold support of the volume zero line, then you take advantage of the pullbacks. Now, as this went through here, we can see that as it's starting to make its move, it has two moves, right? The first pullback is down. There's always a bounce. And then after the bounce, it did another pullback and retouch. So 3%, 3% up, 3%, so 3% down, 3% up, 3% down. So there's always a double move that you can take advantage of. And now it's starting to where it's breaking back up. This time it's got positive volume. You can see right there, the 15-minute moon breaks right here, gives a nice little 15-minute trend, gets a nice little spike. There's the pullback of the spike, and you can see the volume actually maintains its hold. And then you end up, swinging to the upside there. And normally when you're buying into a trade, you always want to buy the bottoms of the 15-minute RSIs if you're heading up, and the tops of the RSIs if you're shorting going down. But that's kind of where that moment is. And there was another second move there. Now, this second move wasn't that great, even though the volume was on a high side. But we are, seeing that we're getting positive volume here. Now, the thing about the beauty is that the trade that we were looking for, the trade that we actually wanted to get into, remember, is the 1 hour moon. So if we go back here and take a look, here's our 1 hour moon, here's our 1 hour move, right? And we have a 1 hour trend here, and those are the two entries. So what we want to cover here is entering on that move. And as you can see here, when the 1 hour moon flexed and showed up at that particular time in this zone here, we had already had a 15-minute moon. And then when the 1 hour moon came in here, we would be buying somewhere in here on these candles here, right? And normally we want to buy, if you're buying in on a candle, especially when there's a 1 hour moon, what's the proper buy-in, right? And there's always a very simple thing. It's you want to make sure that there is a very simple process where we buy as long as there is a 3-minute buy signal. And what I mean by that is you go to your 3-minute, and when you had a 1 hour moon hit, the basis of getting into this trade or agreeing with this trade would simply be that there is a 3-minute green trend and a 3-minute green moon, allocating that the trade is basically, worth buying. So here at that time, we did have a 3-minute moon. We had a 3-minute trend. We got the 1 hour moon somewhere in this process here. And that right there would be the time that we would be saying to ourselves that we would be buying into this particular trade here at these levels, right? And that is kind of like the basis of, the trade option. So since we do have a green moon, green trend, we would be buying in this section. And then all we have to do is that once we have a 3-minute moon, 3-minute trend, we go down to the 15-minute candle. And all we want to do on our 15-minute candle is buy in on a 2 minutes before the next 15-minute candle, or if you're buying on the hour, right, you would buy in on the 3 to 5 minutes before the next hour candle, right? This one happens to be the 11 o'clock candle. So if you're catching it before the 11 o'clock candle, you would have been getting in this zone. And if you waited, you would be waiting for this candle here, which would be you buying, at 11:13 or 11:14 before the next candle came in or whatever. And you'd be buying in this little zone here, and then you would be moving forward. Now, as always, there's two moves that happen when you buy in. There's always a move on the 1 hour moon. There's always a pullback until there's a trend. And then once the trend comes in, that's your second move right there. Now, let's measure this quick move out here. If you buy at the top here, whatever you would have bought in, this went 1 to 2%, had a pullback, and then went back to 2%, right? So these trades, like I said, we're looking for 2 to 7% on the trades. Obviously, we have our 2% here. So depending on how you trade, right? Because we're doing a 50x leverage, and this 50x leverage would have gone for 100 profit on here, and then you can allocate your stop loss to a certain level, which would be when that pullback happens here and you start to move up with that trend and you get that trend push, then you would put a stop loss at the bottom of this trend move, right, which is about 61.39, and you have to make a decision. If you got in at this certain level, what is that profits? And that'd be about 0.76. So in reality, it would be about 30% profit area if you're using a 50x leverage. So we always get in with 50% leverage, a 50% stop loss. We enter 50% of our trade on the first move, and the other half of our trade on the second move, right? So in reality here, this move would be the first move. You would have got a 2% move, which would be about 100%. Theoretically, what should have happened there is that anytime that you get a 100% move, you should take profits. So let's say you had a $100 bag and you got 50% of your bag in at $50 on the moon alert, then this means that this bag would have went for 100%, which means you would have made $50. Now the point of it is that you make 50% on your trade, right? So if you have a $100 bag, the goal is to make $50 in profits, right? Well, if this coin goes for 100%, well, then theoretically you've hit your goal and your job is done. Now, what you could have done is when that happened is you collect your profits and you take your 100%, and then you wait for the pullback, and the trend, the next trade is the 1 hour trend, and then you could have got back in on the 1 hour trend move, and then that would have gave you a situation where you would have got in here on this pullback, and you'd be somewhere where you would have hit 50% gains, but right now you'd be still in your trade because you'd be looking for a 100% move here or a second buy-in opportunity. But since it's the trend trade, it's not a normal, right? So remember, your first trade happens on the 1 hour moon. The other half of your trade happens on the 1 hour trend. Well, since you made 100% profits on your 1 hour moon, that means your second entry, your other half of your entry, which is the trend, would have happened here, but there's no reason or possibility of a second move or entry here, theoretically, because it's already been played. So now you'd have half your bag in. You'd be sitting at, you would have hit about 50% gains, 1% on there. So I think on that one, you have to kind of say that you're going for the bigger move, right? Because it's the trend, and normally, we're looking for a 2 to 5% move. And so at this point, you'd be holding this particular trade to see if it can continue up and actually hit its points. The only thing I would do here is obviously moving your stop loss, right? And we're going to cover the how to your entries, your stop losses, and how to move them accordingly in the next video. But as you can see here, you'd be up 100% on your first one, so you're already $50 up, and then here you'd have a 30% of a half a bag already locked in, or at least you would be set where you entered here at this little pullback line, where you have a stop loss at your entry, so you can't really lose anything here. But you'd be looking for a 1% move to get you 100% profits here on this next move here, which would basically conclude that you hit two 100% profit trades with half bags, which would be $50. $50 would basically mean that you accomplished the goal of making 100% on these two trades. So your $100 main bag would have been doubled to 200. So that's kind of like your goal there. But that's the risk here. The beautiful thing is your first trade already paid you $50. this trade here by being stop loss at your entry doesn't really lose anything, but there is still a possibility that XRP could break out here for, you know, another 100% gain, and get you that double up. But remember, entries come down to, you know, as long as there's a 3-minute green moon, green trend, you're good to go in on your trade. And then things that we like to trade with is we like to buy at the bottom of the RSIs, you know, as they move down. That's where we look to get in on the next moves, and that would have gave you a really clean entry into the trend trade right here, because you did have a 1 hour trend hit at the bottom of this 15-minute RSI, and that puts you in a situation where you're basically able to get um, into the section where you can get the best bounce. So that right there is kind of key to what you do, is catching that RSI, that 15-minute RSI at the bottom, and then riding that up for the trend. Here's your trend hit right here, and riding that trend bounce right here to get that 1% or that 50% move. So I wouldn't be afraid to take, you know, 50% on a half a bag on that, but it is a big possibility that this trade will actually jump for a lot more here, because normally when it kind of runs that way, it does do another 2% on there. So good moves there. On the next video here, video 8, we're just going to cover the amounts of entries and how to get yourself squared away. But this is basically the trade we waited for overnight. Green moon, green trend. At the end of the day, if you played that right, you would have made your 100% on your trade. 50% on your first one here, 100% you would have banged out. You got your 50 bucks. Remember, the entire goal of you is to make 50% on your entire bag. So if you got $1,000 bag, you would have did your 500. If you have a $100 bag, you did your 50. But either way, that's the goal, is to make 50% on all that. So in the next video here, we're going to go over the percentages, what we're getting into, moving the stop loss, etc. Going from there. But that's the trade we waited for, and it did pay out the way we liked it to pay out, guys. So welcome to video, I think 7 here. In video 8, we're going to cover percentages real quick, and then we're going to get into the next series of videos, which would be using your MEXC and actually putting your percentages inside there. All right, so good luck, God bless.